Again, my name is Amy Jackson. Thank you all for being here at the Smart Series from the Chamber. We do these once a month. Obviously, they're all online at this point. But thank you for coming. It's hard not to read the chat and talk at the same time. Sorry. A squirrel ran by and I got sidetracked. We are in partnership with the Western North Carolina Diversity Engagement Coalition. We're so grateful to be able to do some diversity, equity, and inclusion work with them this year. All of our SMART series have been focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And today we're going to talk about marketing et al. With Jefferson Ellison of JAWBREAKING. Jefferson is with JAWBREAKING Creative. He's the principal and owner, an Asheville native who moved away and came back. We're so happy to have you here, Jefferson. I'm going to let you have the floor.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I am an Asheville native. I moved away for college. I went to NC State, go Pack, and then moved to New York for a few years, and then moved back in 2017. So yeah, we are going to talk about marketing, communications, and messaging. I think for me, what I'm really excited about when I do these conversations is that I try to kind of create a pathway, and then hopefully you all feel the need to ask questions and then feel free to chat them. And then Amy says she's going to let me know if there are questions, and we'll kind of move out through there. Let's see. How do I make it work? Okay. So yeah, c'est moi. So I am an Asheville native. I'm 27. So I born and raised in Asheville. My father's from Asheville as well. I went to Asheville High, Asheville Middle, Clarkston Elementary, like I said, NC State. And I picked this quote from Diana Vreeland, who was the editor of Harper's Bazaar and then Vogue in the 60s and 70s, because to me I read her biography in college, and the quote kind of has guided my understanding of marketing and branding since I read it. And the quote is, "I loathe narcissism, but I approve of vanity." And that idea is that when it comes to marketing and it comes to branding, nothing is serious, but also everything is serious, right? And so what does that look like and what does that mean? And so you have to present a good face, and you have to stand flat foot, as my grandma would say, stand flat foot and present your point, but also realize that a conversation with the consumer is never more than that. It's just a conversation. And so while you are committed to something, you can't be so committed to your understanding of your own brand that you're not willing to approve upon that for a better reflection in someone else. So a little bit about my background. I went to school for fashion brand management and marketing. I moved to New York after college, and I was a North American account manager for a Chinese conglomerate. We focused on fashion accessories from top to bottom. I worked with Family Dollar, Walmart, JCPenney, Dillards, Belks, Lord Tayor, Saks, Bergdorf's, etc. And before that I worked in styling. And so in my styling career, I've done editorial work with InStyle magazine, CoverGirl, HGTV, Cotton Incorporated. I've also done personal styling for high net worth individuals and celebrities such as Heurueh Farr and Tiffany Brooks with HGTV as well. And really what's so interesting is that my understanding with branding came from my work in sales. And so I worked for a Chinese conglomerate which owned 6 factories and about 600 employees in China. And I worked in New York with a team of 4. And so all of our workers lived in China, but the creative team lived in New York. And so it was me, 2 production people, and then 2 designers. And I got hired before I even graduated college. I got hired 2 days before I started my senior year in college. My boss at the time flew from China, met me at the mall, and he said, "I don't know what you're going to do, but you come highly recommended, and I want to lock you down." And I was like, okay, that works. He's going to pay for me to move to New York. My parents are going to be happy, all the things. And so I got there, and same thing, he was in China. So I showed up to work, and he was like, "Okay, you work in sales now." And I was like, got it. And I said, "What do I do?" He says, "You go forth and prosper, make sales." I had no mentor. There was no systems, I had no contacts, nothing. I was just like, okay, we're gonna do this. I have to pay rent now. And to kind of give you an idea of what it means to work for a vertically integrated company that has 600 employees based in China, which is like the biggest fashion production hub in the world. In my first 3 months, I was just trying to literally find my desk. And so, oh no, it went away. Where'd you go? Come back. And we're gonna stop. Sorry, I couldn't find my screen. What is this? Thank you, sorry. Hi guys. And so I couldn't find my desk. And so for the first 3 months, we were just giving away product because we were like, we don't even know what we do. Like, all I know is that we own all of these factories and we make all these products. In my first 3 months, we donated 3,000 pounds of product. That is how much stuff was in front of my desk. And so I kind of brought that down. We pared it down, we gave it all away. I found my desk and I was like, okay, well, now I'm gonna try to make sales now. And I asked my boss, I said, well, what does that, I said, how do I know if I'm doing a good job? You know, what does that mean? I've never worked in sales. Again, I have no trainer, I have no mentor, there are no systems, I have no contacts. How do I know if I'm doing a good job? And he was like, you'll know because you should be making $1 million a year in sales. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, at the time, the company only made $2 million a year. So I was being asked 2 days out of college to be responsible for 50% of our revenue with no training. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know what I like. That's all I've ever done. I only just know what I like. And so I started sorting through stuff and I started combing through all the boxes. And I was like, okay, I made a rack of the things that I like. And I found this, and I remember I found this one vest, and that vest changed my understanding of branding. So I said, the one vest, 10 ways. And so I found this one vest, I took a picture, and it was the only thing in the store that I liked. It was the only thing in the showroom that I liked. And I just kept sending it out, and I just kept talking about this vest. And eventually, yes.
May I interrupt you? Will you share your screen, please?
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Where did I go?
There you are.
Perfect.
Okay. Sorry, it went away. There you are. Okay.
Perfect. One vest, 10 ways, right? Mm-hmm. So I found this vest and I started emailing people and I started getting responses, but they weren't really, no one was biting, right? They're like, oh, this is pretty, but no, thank you. And so then I stopped talking and I started listening to the buyers and I started asking them, what is it that you want? What is it that you need? What are you looking for? And for those of you who don't know, when you work for a factory instead of a company, like, you know, Michael Kors is a brand, but Michael Kors has their stuff made from a factory, and I work for a factory. And so when people came to us, it was like a TJ Maxx. It was a free-for-all. They came in, they picked one thing, and that was it. And so I just started asking, you know, what do you want and what are you looking for? And because we were vertically integrated and we owned all of our production, you know, we could pretty much change anything that we wanted. And so what I did was I started still showing this one vest. I said, okay, they would tell me, and then I would tell them how this one vest fit their needs. And so, you know, I remember one retailer said, you know, well, our customer, she's a little bit older. She usually spends about $100. She's a little bit heavier. She likes to layer because she likes to hide her love handles. And she's looking for something that's not going to add too much bulk. And I said, okay, well, this vest is perfect because this vest can retail at $78. You know, it can layer greatly over a sweater. It's going to cut her right. So it's going to cover her love handles. This vest is going to do exactly what you want. And they said, okay. And then another retailer came in and they said, well, our customer, because it was a faux fur vest, our customer has disposable income, but she likes a discount. You know, she's eco-friendly, but she wants to make sure that it's still of high quality. And, and she really likes to support diverse people. And I said, okay, amazing. Well, as you can see in this office, half the staff is Asian American and the other staff is Black and or Arab. And the vest can retail for $398 because that's under $500. And it's a replica of a Russian blue fox. And and it's gonna move really well. It's very luxurious. And I started having a very ethereal conversation. And she said, "Oh, great, I'll take it." And I remember about 6 months later going to my boss, and I was like, "Well, how are we doing?" And we had sold the exact same vests to 10 different retailers at 10 different price points. At the end of my first year, this one vest was at Family Dollar and Saks Fifth Avenue at the exact same time. $400, $500 apart in price. And I was like, huh. And then they decided we're going to get into creating our own brands. And I was like, okay. So we're now selling, instead of selling a product, we're now selling a brand to a retailer. And so now we're not just a coat. Now we have to be a Michael Kors coat. And so I remember we got a meeting with Bergdorf. So we were all very excited. And we stayed up all night. We were working hard because, like I said, my boss was in China. So a lot of times we worked at night so we could FaceTime with them. And I realized the night before the meeting, which is at 10 a.m., that we had a meeting with the wrong buyer. We were accessories. We had a meeting with the coat buyer. And we were all like, oh shit. Excuse my language, but that's literally what the office said. We all just sat there and we were like, oh my God, we're all gonna get fired and we're gonna embarrass ourselves in front of Bergdorf's. And so we sat there trying to figure out what we're gonna do. You can't get the thing overnighted from China in the next 6 hours. And so I remember looking at my two friends, we were all great friends from college, who all happened to end up at the same company. I was living with one of the girls at the time. And we were like, and I was like, you know what? We had multiple of the vests, obviously, we're a showroom. I said, take 3 of these vests, make a coat. So because they had backgrounds in design, they cut up the vest and they started adding to it. And they started making it longer. They cut up one vest and turned it into the sleeves. And then the next day, the buyer came in and she was like, oh, this is so interesting. Tell me more. And I said, well, we really wanted to play with quilting. And we really wanted to look at the different furs and how they would maneuver together. We wanted to provide the option for us to look at detaching the bottom half and really look at what it means to juxtapose these different colors and these different animals in a way that felt necessary, felt elevated, blah, 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 right? We started having a very artsy-fartsy conversation around this hand-me-down, piece together, 99-cent coat from China. And they said, I'll take it. And that coat, that year, Bergdorf sold for $798. And I remember thinking, A, this is amazing. B, fashion is a scam because, and like, how is it that we have sold this one idea, this one concept to all these different people at all these different price points? And I remember calling a meeting with my mentor from a different company, and I asked her for coffee, and I said, is this legal? Is this okay? Like, are we allowed to do this? And she says, absolutely. She says, people coming to you aren't looking for a bargain. They're looking for a justification of their spending. And then she said to me, facts are eternal, the truth is subjective. And I was like, that sounds like a lie, but let's talk more. And she was like, no, think about it. When you're having these conversations, you're not lying. You're telling people the truth. This is where the coat is made. This is what the coat does. This is the aesthetic the coat could fit, or the vest or whatever. And then you put a price on it. And if those people see the value as what it is, it's not up to you to save them money. They did not come there for you to save them money. They came there with a budget and a desire to fill the racks of their stores. And so if what you present to them justifies their spending, then they're happy. And that is the notion of branding. branding, which is different from marketing or communications, branding is a justification of spending. People do not come to brands looking for you to save them money. When I go to a brand, when I'm going to Michael Kors, when I'm going to Audi, when I'm going to Ruth Chris or whatever, when I'm going to a brand, I know I'm going to that brand because I have decided that I can afford what they have. And in today's world where we are inundated with so much social media and so many shopping platforms and so much information, we know before a brand ever talks to us how much something is going to cost. We are that informed. So if I'm going to you, I know that I can afford what you're offering. And I'm coming here because I'm looking to purchase something. I'm asking you to justify it back to me so I can feel validated in my choice, because I obviously came here for a reason. And so as long as when I step into your store and when I interact with your brand and when I try on your clothes and I read your narrative, it feels good to me, then I'm sold. And that in that moment, that's when I fell in love with branding. And that's also the year I decided to move back from New York to open my agency, because I realized I hated sales. Sales was terrible. I also hated that job, to be frank, because I didn't like selling the same things to the same people. It did feel skeezy. But at the same idea, I fell in love with the idea of the story. And it's like, this entire process is not about, I did not get into this business. I did not get into fashion to convince anyone or to save anyone money. I got in there to tell them a story that felt good to them, that felt right to them. And if it didn't feel right, then it wasn't the story for them, but it doesn't change the fact that the story exists and it feels right to someone. And so speaking of brands, this is my brand. This is Jawbreaking. Jawbreaking is our elevated pictures that we are a millennial focused company that manifests the youth experience through products, services, and content. And so we have a product line that we have a brick and mortar store on Eagle Street across from the YMI. We have a content platform where we post about 6 to 8 articles a day that covering everything from fashion and beauty to news and politics. And we focus on intersectional millennial stories. And so, we give fashion advice and beauty tips. We also talk about politics. We just ran a really lovely story around a woman's choice to lose her virginity. Our goal is to amplify and elevate millennial stories in a way that feel necessary to the people reading it and the people writing it. We also have a creative agency where we do content creation and branding, and we work with brands like we do storytelling for Leaf Global Arts and the YMI. We also do content creation for the Bright Angle and the Diaz Restaurant Group. We've worked with East Fork and a few other brands around town, and obviously a few brands in New York as well. And so that is kind of our pitch, right? And our brand, and like when people ask, like, well, who are you? And we say, we're the 21st century youthquake. We're a movement, a business, a community rooted in the idea that the youth will always win and be better dressed, because that is who we are. We, at the core of who I am and the core of what I do, I am a 27-year-old who is obsessed with fashion, with a degree in marketing, who loves storytelling, right? That is who I am. I am my brand. And whether or not you agree with my brand doesn't change the fact that I am my brand. And so people who come to Jawbreaking Creative come to us because they're looking to tap into intersectional demographics. And so, a lot of times we do what we call the trend trifecta. So Black women, gay men, and early adopter millennials. Those are the trendsetters, and that is our community. And we produce content for those people. We are those people. Everyone who works with us is under the age of 30. So we are those people. We make content for those people. We sell products to those people. And so you're coming to us because you believe that we know this audience. And I always tell people, I am not, if you're trying to sell, diapers to a 65-year-old woman, I can give you the theory behind it. And I could give you the 4 Ps of marketing. But that is not who I am, and that's not where I shine. My brand is who I am. And I'm lucky enough and proud that we've created a brand that's very authentic to who we are and how we show up in the world. And so I wanted to kind of take this conversation through the, kind of the difference between marketing and communications, right? So marketing is what you have to say. Marketing will focus on the who, demographics, behaviors, et cetera. And communications will focus on the how, the message. And so marketing is researching, analyzing, planning, executing, and measuring all activities related to acquiring customers to buy your products. Marketing is how you prep them to spend their money. Communications is how you say that. It's how you deliver your marketing ideas to consumers. Communications is about consistent messaging on your business across all channels. And a lot of times, this is where brands mess up. And the communications is what opens the door for your competitors. And so if you're, let's say you're a cereal company. If you're a cereal company and your competitor is a cereal company, and every day people see that same blue box from your competitors, and they know that blue box represents cereal. And let's say they've tried that cereal once or twice, they liked it, it was decent, but they've moved on. But every day they know that blue box equals cereal. And let's say for the last 3 years, every day you've changed the color of your box. Your communication is the problem, not your product. Because when I go to the store and I'm trying to feed a hungry kid, as I was telling Amy earlier, I need quick, fast, easy. So I'm going to go to the blue box because that's what I know. And so the marketing is what you say on the blue box. The communication is how you present that message. An idea that kind of on the idea of like who, what, and when, where, and how, a lot of times I'll say is that branding is not a question of who or how. It is a statement of why. Branding is how you show up and why you show up. So it's, if you're saying, like, we believe, like if you're a restaurant, your brand can't be $5.99 or $5.99 tacos. That's not a brand. Your brand is food access and affordability, right? It is why you make a $5.99 taco. It's not, and it's, and your marketing and your communications is going to be how you present that and who you share that with and who you define yourself as. But the why is why people come back to certain brands. They believe that a brand is doing whatever it is they're doing and selling whatever it is that they are selling with good intent. And that is what clear communications will do. It builds trust. And so like I said before, I don't necessarily need you to agree with me, but I don't think I've ever met a person in business or my personal life who didn't believe that I was who I said I was. So if I show up and I say, my name is Jefferson Ellison, I'm 27, I'm in marketing, I think this, I think that, I think this. You may disagree with all of that, but I guarantee you believe that I believe what I just said because that's my brand. I am my brand. And so when you're looking at course correcting in terms of your branding and your marketing, the question is, if someone were to explain your business or your organization to a stranger who had never been there, could they tell them your ethos? Could they tell a stranger who you are, how you do what you do, and why you do what you do? Do they see you as a community partner, or do they see you as an inspiration? Luxury brands, cars, purses, homes, luxury is an inspiration. The why is that you've earned it. The why is that it's worth it. And sure, it's worth it because it's handmade or it's made by artisans or it's all these, exclusive materials. But then the question is, why the exclusive materials? Why is the artisan making this house, making this car, making this bag? And it's because you've earned it. It's worth it. It'll last forever. It'll hold memories. You've never seen someone driving a $200,000 car without thinking about, without and not having them think about the wind blowing in their hair and what it means for them to make that goal and go fast on the road with the open road in front of them. And that is the story that they're telling. Another thing that I think is really important when you're looking at your marketing is how your marketing mix kind of goes together, right? I think what I've noticed is a lot of, because Asheville is a smaller town, a lot of businesses here are probably between, 500,000 and 15 million. So like they would still be considered a smaller business in terms of consumerism, right? They don't have a clear relationship between their paid, earned, and owned media. And so when you're thinking about paid, you're thinking about advertising. When you're thinking about owned, you're thinking about your social media and your blog, right? And then your earned is your press. So that's when people are talking about you without you having to pay them or do the work for them. And so with your paid media, the question is, if you're spending money, right? And if you're spending that money, and if you know who you're trying to reach, your paid media and how you engage with the consumers should be, what can you track and what can you prove? If you're gonna spend money to talk to people, you need to know what you're getting out of it. And then your earned is, what does the world care about? That really is where you should start. Like your earned is, what are people saying about you without you asking them to? And then once you know kind of what the world says about you and how the world sees you, you then get to get into, okay, well, what else if this is what the world says about me, what else do I want them to say, right? And then if that's your second question, how can I track that and prove that? If I'm going to spend my money, if I'm a small business and I'm in Asheville and we're trying to save money because it's a pandemic, but I need to reach this customer, that was the question I think on the little intro to this webinar was, who is your audience and how do you reach them? So if you know who your audience is, you're like, okay, well, this is what the world is saying about me, and this is who I want to be talking to. How do I spend money to get to them? And what can I track and what can I prove? And then once you figure out what you can pay for and then see your results on, what do I need to control? Like for me personally, I know that in any conversation that I'm having about me, I need to control my narrative. And I am always very sensitive when working with clients that we don't pay for other people to do storytelling. Because when, with my clients, a lot of them work in nonprofits and they work in equity work. And so it's very important that when having equitable conversations, that people's narrative are correct. And so I need to control that. That is not something I'm willing to risk to someone else. And so those stories have to go on our blog. They have to go on our social media. They have to go in our e-newsletters. We cannot trust that to someone else because we need to control that. What we can track and prove are event tickets, right? So like that's what we're going to spend money on. We're going to advertise for an event, because I know if I spent $10 and I sold 2 tickets and each ticket is $5, then the advertiser paid for itself. Or even better, let's say you sold 10 tickets, so advertising made you money. That's what you're looking for. I love this quote, if I can read it because I'm in the way. Storytelling is our obligation to the next generation. If all we're doing is marketing, we're doing a disservice, and not only to our profession, but to our children and to their children. Give something of meaning to your audience by inspiring, engaging, and educating them with story. Stop marketing, start storytelling. I would say, yes, and, right? Like obviously I have a marketing agency, so everybody should be marketing all the time, call us. But what I love about this quote is the idea of doing a disservice to your profession. I think the one thing, America has a lot of problems, as we all know, but the one thing that America has historically always done well is the idea that business was a higher purpose and the idea of efficiency, right? And so America has always held space for a lot of stories around business. Who is this mom and pop printer who started a newspaper? What is this, local bodega on 127th Street who, who started as a farmer and then moved to America to create a better life? And like, what is that story? And why does that matter? And it's because products and experiences and the content that you're seeing on an everyday basis is the root of your experience. We live in America. America is a country of products, right? So it's like people want relationships with these products. I think everyone, like you think of what it means to grow up in America, or even just really in the Western world, and you think the big symbols. The first time you saw the golden arches, you think about your wedding dress, or unfortunately, we're conditioning girls to think about their wedding dresses since they're 2 until they get married, if they get married, if they want to get married, right? And even if you don't, and even if you choose to get married and you don't want a white wedding dress, you have a very visceral reaction to a white wedding dress because you wanted a gray wedding dress. You have relationships to products and you have relationships to categories. And so to engage with that in a really organic way, you have to give it a story and you have to honor the process of creating something, even if it's bullshit, right? Like, even if it doesn't actually matter, it needs to matter. And which is why I always go back to that quote around narcissism versus vanity. It's like, sure, at the end of the day, selling a $200 scarf to someone doesn't actually matter. It's not going to save the world. But in this moment, as this woman, as a woman who moves to Chicago after graduating college and working for jobs to pay for it, and it's her first winter and she just got a raise, and so she wants to treat herself, it matters that you talk about the artisan in Switzerland that knitted that scarf, right? It matters that she feels connected to a greater world and that she feels like what she's doing is not only supporting other people, but it is elevating her life and it's giving her something that she can treasure and that can hold those memories. Okay. So if you haven't noticed, I'm a bit dramatic, but that's what content is, right? It's, I was a theater kid growing up. And so they always say, play for the cheap seats in the back, right? That is what content is. That is what storytelling is. It should be dramatic. This is when you're telling stories and when you're producing content, this is not the time to be shy. This is the time to be specific. This is the time to be dramatic and to tell grandiose stories, because that is what it means to be a brand, to be omnipresent in somebody's life, is to tell those huge stories. I think one of the best examples of that is someone like McDonald's. McDonald's does a really great job of telling the truth about what they do and lying at the same time. On their face, McDonald's is a cheap fast food business that underpays its employees, uses fake meat, and is secretly a real estate business rather than a restaurant. But in their commercials, they are your first job, right? They are offering scholarships. They are American tradition. They are food accessibility, right? They are feeding America, and they are feeding America at a price point that America can afford. At the same time, they are employing America and they are inspiring America to leave. Like they're saying, like, here, this is your first job. We're going to give you a scholarship and then you never have to come back to McDonald's again. And then they give you a buy-in program to then own your own franchise. That's branding. All of that to sell 99-cent fries. It's dramatic, right? And so when you're thinking about content and you're thinking about the stories you want to tell, be McDonald's, educate people. What are you doing? How are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Contextualize what you're thinking about, right? Like, contextualize your experience. Oh, there's a typo. I am so sorry. See, no one's gonna listen to me now because there's a typo in my presentation. Jesus. But contextualize your experience. Like, it's not, give that extra content, the extra context of why you're doing something, even if it doesn't matter to you. Ingratiating yourself with your customers and with your story and with your community allows people to feel like you are bigger than you once were. I know more about you now. I trust you more. I want to see you thrive because I know how you got started. Adding that context is really, really important to building those relationships. And in a really capitalist kind of way, that is what makes people spend more money. I had a client who used to do emails every 4 months. So they said, we're not email people, whatever. And I was like, yeah, but your open rate is like 50%. And like a standard open rate, a good standard open rate is like 15% when it comes to email marketing. And theirs are at 50%. And I said, okay, so what happens if we started doing once a month? And sure, the open rates went down. They went down from 50% to 35%. But the amount of money that each consumer spent at their business doubled because of the context. These seeing your brand in their inbox every month, telling these stories makes them like you more and makes them more willing to support you. Now it's not just you being a service or a resource for what they want. They are a resource for what you want. Also inspire them. I think one of the things that made me fall in love with fashion was the life that you can live in these clothes. You know, my first real memory of fashion was watching my mom get dressed for her anniversary dinner when I was 8 years old. And I was in her bathroom, in her bathtub, because I used to hang out there. And she was wearing a lovely floral pink midi dress with a matching cardigan, as she does, and white pantyhose and white pumps. And she was doing her hair. And I remember sitting there thinking how glamorous she looked and how happy she looked. And it was when I realized that here is this woman who I love going to celebrate someone that she loves and something big in her life. And I just remember thinking, I wanted to be a part of everyone's narrative like that. I wanted to make the dress that you're going to wear on the night you fall in love with your future husband. That is what inspires people to get into frivolous industries like beauty and fashion. They want to be a part of a greater story. And a part of that story is bonding with them. And bonding with them is to be honest, to tell them when you've made a mistake, to tell them how you're growing, how you're failing, what you're looking for, how you're struggling. Because once again, showing your customers that your business is run by people makes them realize that with the impact they can have on your business. And last, submit. Your customer is always right. When it comes to content, your customer is always, when it comes to marketing, your customer is always right. Submit to them. It is your job. It is not your job to be right when it comes to someone who you are asking something from. And so what that means in terms of content is, if someone tells you that this is how they see your brand, then you need to elevate that story for them. That doesn't mean you need to shift your brand. Like if someone tells you that your brand color should be blue and white instead of pink and purple, I'm not saying listen to them, but I'm saying that if someone tells you that if you're a wine company, they're telling you that your wine is a cheap and cheerful daily experience and not the anniversary dinner, go with that. That's a story. What does it mean for this wine to be a daily consumption rather than a luxury expense, right? Like that's good for you, and that doesn't change your brand. It just means that your brand can manifest in different ways depending on your consumer. Last one. That's just a slide. That's just there for fun. So like I said, we do branding and marketing and social media. So we're always happy to talk with brands. I love working with Astro companies. It's a community that I really love. And so I'm always happy to have more conversation with people like this. So there's my email and all that jazz, but this is not about promo. So I wanted to open it up to any questions. Amy, are you still there?
I'm still here, yes.
Hey,
Thank you.
Hey.
Okay.
Amy, did you have any questions?
I do. I have a couple of comments. Surprise, surprise, everyone. I have some comments. I was listening to you tell who you are and what you do, why you do it. And I want people to realize that it's the same as he is as a person. You can be in the business that you work in, whether it's yours or you're the person marketing, branding. I love the difference in the communications and the branding. That's huge to me. But you are who you are, and you should tell your story. That's where the resignation comes in with consumers of your product, if you will. And the other thing I loved is for everyone to really pay attention and make sure that your customer, your consumer knows why you do what you do. It's a big deal. It goes a long way. It tells the story without telling the story. It makes you more believable and more transparent, if you will. I think we all need a little more transparency these days and honesty. And yeah. So bring us some questions. What did this stir up for you? Anybody got any significant, or let's see, here's one. Awesome inspiration from Mindy Smith at Align Life. Thanks, Mindy. Anyone have any marketing challenges?
Oh yes,
yeah.
I love betting.
What's a marketing challenge? Tell us one of those.
It's my favorite thing. Since you want me to give you a marketing challenge?
I want you to, yeah.
Oh, sure. So this is fun. So and this ties back into kind of, I know you guys are doing DEC work right now, or DEI work.
Mm-hmm.
And so our agencies right now, we're doing a anti-racism and marketing monthly webinar called Don't Ask Your Black Friend. And so the idea,
wait, say it again.
Don't Ask Your Black Friend.
Okay.
And so the idea is you don't get to ask your Black friend, you get to ask me because you paid for it. And so I'm going to do this emotional labor because I'm going to take your money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can register on it on our website. It is next Tuesday. But part of the conversation that I had last webinar was around the Black Lives Matter movement. And I told the story of, I had a client who is a business downtown who is not Black owned. And they were asking during the protest, they asked, should we put a Black Lives Matter sign in our window? And it was like 8:30 at night. They're like, the protests are starting, she's kind of frantic. And she's like, I don't know what to do. Should we put a Black Lives Matter sign in the window? And I said, I don't know. Should you? Do you feel called to do that? Are you willing to answer for that, whatever that means? Because we know our audience, we know this audience is not all, in favor of Black Lives Matter. And so if you post this, you're going to get support and backlash. And with both of those, you're going to need to go the step further. And she's like, well, no, she's like, I don't want to do this. I just want to protect my business. I just want it to go away. And I said, well, it's not going away, but we're not going anywhere. But I said, I don't think you should post it. I think you just answered your own question. If you don't know, the answer is no, right? And I said, and so then I called her the next day and I was like, well, let's check in. My mom's a therapist. So I'm always trying to process something, right? Like, let's process, what does this mean, And she's like, well, I want to be supportive. And she's like, she said, you know what, Jefferson, I just want to feed my community. I want to keep my employees paid. I just don't want to get into this. And I understand that I'm supposed to. And I said, okay, so let's go back there. I said, if you want to be engaged in this conversation in a way that feels authentic to you, let's check in on those two things. You want to keep your employees paid, you want to feed your community. And so what we did for the next 2 months was we ran content on their socials and on their blogs around the community. And we did profiles on the employees. And we talked about, food apartheid and food poverty and food deserts. And what does it mean to live in the South, where a lot of the food that we're elevating now is rooted in poverty and slave food, really. And so we started having those conversations. And what she saw was that they were able to naturally engage in a conversation that felt really good to them. And they actually got emails from people within the Black Lives Matter movement who that really appreciated the conversations that were had. Because they're like, and what they said was, I see you. They said, we recognize what you're doing and we appreciate it because you're staying in your place. You're not lying to anyone. You're not using this as a marketing ploy. You're being honest, you're being intentional, and you are adding to the conversation in a respectful way. And so I think that, and I love that example because I think with majority of the world that we're living in now and all the problems that can happen. And, you know, between politics and race and, I mean, this is the South, so this is a conservative place, but then Asheville is liberal. And what does all of that mean? And blah, blah, blah. And, you know, and poverty and all that. Everyone knows the world we live in is shit. We all know this is a crazy place. We get that. All anyone is asking of you as a brand, as a person, is to show up and to be honest with them and to be kind. And I think with all of the marketing issues that you come up with, that is your starting point. You know, here's my problem. How do I solve it? Well, you know, be honest, be kind, advocate for your community in a way that feels good to you and that doesn't overextend yourself based past what you're able to offer. And then no one can fault you for that.
Sure. Sure. Okay, I have a question for you.
Okay.
This is from Rudy. Hi, Rudy. I'm so glad you're here. It's been a long time. Jefferson, do you incorporate your company's culture and value proposition in the marketing strategy, which helps your brand? Do you incorporate the company's culture and value proposition into the marketing strategy, which helps your brand?
In terms of for me personally, or should they, as for their business?
Rudy, help us out. Incorporate your company's culture and value into marketing strategy. What helps your brand? Here he comes. Rudy, I see that you're, unmute yourself and then you can ask. Or Aaron, can you help him? I bet I can. Hold on.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh,
Yeah.
there you are. Hi, Rudy.
Hi, I'm sorry. I had it mute the whole time. I was talking to myself there.
Oh, we play a drinking game with that. And no matter what you're drinking, if someone's talking with mute on, you have to drink.
Oh, well, I have plenty of liquor here from Thanksgiving. So.
Okay, perfect. Go for it. It's after 12.
Yeah, yeah, 5 o'clock somewhere. Anyway, yeah, it's your company. I just wanted to hear your take, Jefferson, on you know, a culture of a company, their value proposition. A lot of them are marketing, you know, kind of putting that into the marketing strategy to help, you know, increase their brand recognition. Have you used that?
Well, yeah, like, so like in terms of what we're doing and as and jawbreaking and our work, it's a part of our strategy and part of our brand and our storytelling, because it's kind of the point, right? Like the whole point of our business is to advocate for our generation. And so because we are a company that's rooted in that generation, by showing up and by telling that story, we are therefore fulfilling our purpose. I think other businesses, when they do that, have to be really careful that they aren't exploiting their employees to meet a goal, right? And so I think company culture is valuable when company culture is impactful. But if your employees would not tell that story on their own volition, then perhaps you should not tell that story either.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you.
sure.
Yeah, I think the worst thing you can do is not have your employees tell that story on their own volition.
Yeah, it's awkward. You know, it's like Amazon, you know. I'm sorry, someone from Amazon's probably on this call. I'm sorry, Amazon, please bring my packages. I'm just saying.
It's just an example, yeah. I understand. Yeah. Any other questions? Let me see if I can pull the chat up. Going through. Susie, are you still there? Give us your take. Susie Chandler.
You want to know my take on the?
I want to know your take. Yeah, give us a take away.
Oh man, I just love the part about authenticity and you know, showing up and telling a story that really stuck out for me. You know, particularly in the telling the story of Little Ryan University and how it impacts lives. You know, what we're doing in the community, not just with our students, but with our nonprofits. And we really don't tell our story. We talk about what, you know, like how it might help somebody, you know, get a promotion or, you know, career change or whatever, as opposed to, I created a replication plan for an organization, as part of my schoolwork, an organization called Freedom Life for justice served individuals rolling out of prison and getting wraparound services. And that was a real privilege to be able to learn and work on that team and do that. That's a story that talks about what LR really is, a community service thing. And it's totally changing my perspective.
I love
Awesome.
that. I think, hi, Susie. I
Hey,
think that's really interesting that you said that. I have some friends who graduated from Lenore Ryan, so I
a
know
great school.
it's a great school. I
It's
love
a
it.
great school. I'll say it too.
And
Woo!
I think
Exciting.
one, higher education institutions that do storytelling really well are historically Black colleges and universities and historically female colleges and universities. And it is because they are rooted in kind of a greater purpose. And I think that's something that, like, I mean, education, my mom is always trying to get me to go back to grad school. And I keep telling her I work for myself, so no one's going to give me a promotion. So it doesn't make any sense. But, she's always saying invest in yourself. And the idea that education, wherever you go and however it shows up for you, is a tool, and it makes you a part of something that's bigger than you. And it's more than just the class and the degree. It's the culture, and it's the friends you make and all of that. I think that person is what made me fall in love with my university. And I think that is what I love seeing from HBCUs and some of the few predominantly female colleges that still exist, is their way of bringing the purpose or what they're selling back down to the cause and of the people who are going there.
Right. I married one of those. But I had to say, don't sell yourself short, Jefferson. Shameless plug, J.L. Radigan owns French Broad Chocolates, came and got our MBA from Little Ryan, and then promptly opened a second store and expanded by twice employees and blew it up. I could see you in our social impact program.
We have another question, Jefferson. From Maria Pilos. Maria, if you're still out there, be listening up because he may have questions for you. What are your thoughts on how to have younger staff feel the branding, especially given that the statistics are that they will leave your company after a few years? Not your company. For example, Maria works for Johnson Price Sprinkle, an accounting firm. How to have younger staff feel the branding, speaking of it on their own volition, given that the statistics are that they leave after a few years.
I think it's all about the buy-in, right? It's the same thing. I mean, like, how do you keep your husband around when 50% of marriages end? It's the same thing. It's the buy-in. What does it mean for this person to work for you? And when my last story of the day, I swear, but I used to work at Ingles, and I'm old enough and I'm from Asheville long enough to where I have worked at Ingles in high school, in college, and after college. And I've changed departments, and I've gone from being a cashier to being the cook to being the guacamole guy, whatever. And I remember I went to go visit my little cousin who's 17. She was a cashier working at Ingles, a very smart girl, had just graduated college. And the store manager who I knew, I was saying hi to, and she said, oh, she was talking to my cousin. She said, oh, she said, you have assistant manager potential. And I said, no, sweetheart. She has franchise potential. Like, let's talk about what it is that this business can offer this young girl. It can offer her, they pay for college. They offer franchise opportunities. And so it's like, if all you have to offer someone is minimum wage,
right,
and the base level of stability, then there's nothing for them to buy into. But if this is a company where, like, they're being paid enough to pay their bills and also save, and they feel seen, heard, and validated, and respected and represented, and they feel bought in and their opinions are being asked of them, then they won't leave every 2 years. The reason millennials keep leaving is because nobody pays them.
Right. And nobody listens. And I don't know the company, but the base was to hire people, to train them, to get them ingrained in the business, and then to move on. That we're putting better people out in the world makes everything better, makes your company better, because if they are at the next company and that company says, wow, you are awesome and you have been trained well and you've bought in, where did you work before? That's going to elevate your brand as it is.
Yeah.
There are
And
many
the
ways.
reason I didn't leave my old company, the reason I stayed in my old company for so long, and to be fair, I was miserable. I was in therapy. I was so upset. But it's because I had buy-in. At the end of the day, I hated my boss, but
Sure.
I had autonomy. And it took me a long time to leave because I just knew, where else am I going to go where I'm going to be well paid,
Right.
and I'm going to have the abilities where I can give an opinion and someone actually listens to me.
Sure. Got it.
Then I started with myself, and I still don't
Okay.
listen to me.
They listen to you, I'm sure. All right. That's our time. We are done. Jefferson, I so appreciate you being around. I love your authenticity, your honesty, your truth. It's great. Again, everyone that has been here and participating, thank you so much for being here. Again, we do this once a month. Check our website, ashevillechamber.org, and you can see the next one coming up in January. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a great
Happy
day.
holidays.
Go get in the sunshine, please. It'll do everyone well. Take care, Jefferson.
Bye-bye.